I thought I knew Marcus Coleman. We'd been best friends since freshman year at Northwestern, roommates for 3 years, and he was supposed to be my best man. But on the night of my engagement party, while I was in the kitchen getting champagne for a toast, he was in my living room destroying my entire world. By the time I walked back out, my fiancée Rebecca was kissing him like her life depended on it. And 50 of our closest friends and family were staring in shock. That betrayal nearly broke me. But what I discovered about Marcus 3 weeks later, that's what saved me. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The whole thing started 8 months before the engagement party. Back in March, when I first met Rebecca Winters at a coffee shop in Lincoln Park, I was there for a client meeting that got canceled last minute. She was at the corner table with her laptop, completely absorbed in whatever she was working on. When she finally looked up and caught me staring, instead of being annoyed, she smiled and asked if I knew anything about marketing analytics. Turns out she was struggling with a presentation for her job at a boutique marketing firm. And I happened to work in data analysis for a consulting company. We ended up talking for 3 hours. She was sharp, funny, and had this way of lighting up when she got excited about something. By the end of that afternoon, I knew I wanted to see her again, Marcus. Met Rebecca 2 weeks later when I brought her to our weekly basketball game at the gym. He was immediately charming, which was typical Marcus. He had this effortless charisma that made people gravitate toward him. Rebecca seemed impressed by his stories about his import business and his recent trip to Thailand. I was proud to introduce her to my best friend, the guy who'd been like a brother to me since we were 18. What I didn't know was that Marcus had been lying about pretty much everything for months. The successful import business? Non-existent. The expensive apartment in River North? He was 3 months behind on rent, the designer clothes and fancy dinners. All funded by credit cards he had no intention of paying off. But I had no reason to suspect any of this. Marquez had always been the ambitious one, the guy with big plans and bigger dreams. If anything, I was happy he seemed to be finally making them reality. Rebecca and I got serious quickly. She started staying over most weekends, and we fell into this comfortable routine. Sunday morning coffee, farmers market runs, cooking dinner together while she told me about her difficult clients, and I complained about spreadsheets. Marcus would often join us for dinner, and the 3 of us became a tight unit. We'd go to Cubs games, try new restaurants, take weekend trips to Wisconsin. Rebecca would joke that she was dating both of us. Marcus would laugh and say she could do worse. By November, I knew I wanted to marry her. I'd never felt this sure about anything in my life. Rebecca made everything better. My tiny apartment felt like home when she was there. Work stress disappeared when I heard her key in the door, and even my chronic worrying seemed manageable. When she talked me through problems, she was practical but spontaneous, ambitious but grounded. She laughed at my terrible jokes like they were comedy gold. I spent weeks planning the proposal. I wanted it to be perfect but not over the top. Rebecca hated being the center of attention, so a public proposal was out. Instead, I decided on Christmas Eve at her parents' house in Naperville. Her whole family would be there, but it would feel intimate and meaningful. I bought the ring in early December, a simple solitaire that matched her style perfectly. Marcus helped me pick it out, actually. Came with me to 3 different jewelry stores and gave me grief for overthinking. Every detail. She's going to say yes, dude. He kept telling me, stop sweating it. The proposal went exactly as planned. Rebecca cried. Her mom cried. Even her tough as nails father got emotional. Called my parents in Phoenix and they were thrilled. Marcus was the first friend I texted with the news, and he responded immediately with congratulations and insisted on taking us out to celebrate the next night. Planning the engagement party was Rebecca's domain. She loved organizing events and had strong opinions about everything from the guest list to the appetizer selection. We decided to host it at my apartment in January. Nothing too fancy, just close friends and family to celebrate before we started the intense wedding planning. 50 people maximum, cocktails and finger foods, casual but elegant. Marcus threw himself into helping with preparations. He offered to handle the bar setup and insisted on buying several bottles of expensive champagne, only the best for my best friend, he said. Rebecca was touched by how invested he was in making the night special. She even joked that he was more excited about our engagement than some of our actual relatives. The night of the party, everything started perfectly. Rebecca looked stunning, in a navy dress I'd never seen before, and our apartment was transformed. With string lights and flowers, my parents had flown in from Phoenix, her family drove up from Naperville, and all our friends were there. Marcus arrived early to help with last-minute setup, bringing those expensive champagne bottles and a huge grin. For the first hour, I felt like the luckiest guy alive. Rebecca was glowing, moving around the room, and making sure everyone felt welcome. My mom was already planning wedding details with Rebecca's mom. My dad was deep in conversation with Rebecca's father about golf courses. Marcus was entertaining a group with stories about his latest business ventures. Everyone was laughing. I decided to make a toast around 9 o'clock, when most people had arrived and the energy was perfect. I went to the kitchen to grab the champagne Marcus had brought, wanting to open one of the good bottles for the occasion. It took me maybe 5 minutes to find the bottle opener, open the champagne, and arrange glasses on a tray. When I walked back into the living room with the champagne and glasses, ready to gather everyone for the toast, the entire room had gone dead silent. 50 people were staring at the center of the room where Marcus and Rebecca were locked in what could only be described as a passionate kiss. Her hands were in his hair, his arms were wrapped around her waist, and they were completely oblivious to the fact that they had an audience. The tray slipped from my hands. The sound of expensive champagne bottles and glasses shattering on my hardwood floor finally broke them apart. Rebecca's face went white when she saw me, then red when she realized everyone was watching. Marcus just stood there with this expression I'd never seen before. Not guilt, exactly, but something harder to read. "Jake, I can explain," Rebecca started, but her voice was shaky and unconvincing. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I just stood there in the middle of broken glass and spreading champagne, staring at the two people I trusted most in the world. My parents looked mortified. Rebecca's family looked furious. Our friends were either staring at their shoes or pulling out their phones to text people who weren't there. Marcus was the first to move. He walked toward me, stepping carefully around the glass, and put his hand on my shoulder. "Jake, man, I'm sorry you had to find out like this." "Find out like what? That my best friend and my fiancée had been having an affair? That my engagement party was apparently the perfect venue for them to finally go public with their relationship? That everything I thought I knew about my life was a complete lie? How long?" I managed to ask. Rebecca opened her mouth to answer, but Marcus cut her off. "Since Thanksgiving? 2 months. Dodd. They'd been together for 2 months, and I'd had no idea. All those dinners together, weekend trips, casual hangouts, I'd been completely blind to what was happening right in front of me. I thought about all the times Marcus had complimented Rebecca. All the inside jokes I thought were just friendship. All the moments I'd felt grateful that my best friend and my fiancé got along so well. "I think everyone should leave," I said quietly. The next 20 minutes were a blur of awkward goodbyes, whispered conversations, and people avoiding eye contact. Rebecca tried to talk to me twice, but I couldn't handle it. Marcus lingered until the end, like he wanted to explain or apologize or something, but I just pointed at the door. "Get out." When everyone was gone, I sat in my living room, surrounded by broken glass and the smell of spilled champagne, trying to process what had just happened. My engagement was over. My best friendship was over. I had absolutely no idea what came next. The days after the engagement party passed in a strange, hollow silence. I took a week off work, claiming food poisoning, because I couldn't imagine sitting in meetings and pretending everything was normal. My apartment felt contaminated somehow, like the betrayal had seeped into the walls. I kept finding reminders of Rebecca everywhere, her coffee mug in the dishwasher, a hair tie on my nightstand. Her favorite book still bookmarked on page 127. My phone buzzed constantly with messages I didn't want to read. Rebecca sent paragraph-long texts that started with, please let me explain, and devolved into desperate promises that it was a mistake, that she loved me, that Marcus had manipulated her somehow. I deleted them without finishing. My parents called, twice a day from Phoenix. My mom's voice tight with worry and my dad, clearing his throat like he wanted to say something helpful, but had no idea what that might be. The worst part was Marcus. He didn't text or call, which somehow felt worse than if he had. For 7 years, we'd talked almost every day. When I got promoted, Marcus was the first person I called. When his dad had that heart scare 2 years ago, I drove him to the hospital at 3 in the morning. We'd planned a guy's trip to Costa Rica for March, already booked the flights and hotels. Now there was just silence where my best friend used to be. By the second week, I forced myself back to work. My colleagues were either overly sympathetic or pretended nothing had happened, both of which were unbearable in their own ways. Myself into spreadsheets and client reports, staying late every night because going home meant sitting alone with my thoughts. My boss, Linda, finally cornered me on Thursday afternoon. "Jake, you look like hell," she said, not unkindly. "Whatever's going on, maybe you should take some real time off. Go somewhere. Clear your head." That weekend, I drove up to my cousin Danny's cabin in Wisconsin. Danny was 5 years older and had always been the practical one in our family. When I showed up at his door with a duffel bag and probably the most pathetic expression in human history, he just handed me a beer and pointed to the couch. "Rough week?" he asked. I told him everything. The whole sordid story spilled out over the next 2 hours while we sat on his deck overlooking the lake. Danny listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or making sympathetic noises. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Preparing and narrating the story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "You know what the worst part is?" he finally said. "It's not that they betrayed you. It's that they made you feel stupid for trusting them." He was right. I kept replaying every interaction from the past few months, looking for signs I'd missed. Had Rebecca seemed distant? Had Marcus been acting strange? Was I really so oblivious that I couldn't see what was happening in my own life? "Stop doing that," Danny said, reading my expression. "You trusted people you should have been able to trust. It makes them liars, not you an idiot." I spent 3 days at the cabin, hiking during the day and playing poker with Danny's neighbors at night. It was the first time since the party that I felt even slightly human. But by Tuesday, I knew I had to go back and figure out how to rebuild my life. The first step was practical. Rebecca still had keys to my apartment, and half her stuff was still there. I couldn't keep living in a museum of our relationship. I texted her for the first time since the party, asking her to come get her things while I was at work. She responded immediately, agreeing and asking again if we could talk. I left her a message to read. When I got home that evening, her key was on my kitchen counter, along with a handwritten letter I threw away without opening. Most of her obvious belongings were gone, but I kept finding random items for weeks afterward. A phone charger behind my nightstand. Her favorite coffee creamer is still in my fridge. A paperback mystery novel in my bathroom that she'd been reading in the bathtub. Work became my refuge. I volunteered for every project Linda would give me, including a complicated audit for a manufacturing company in Detroit that required travel. Anything to keep my mind occupied and my schedule full. My coworkers stopped asking how I was doing, which was a relief. I didn't want sympathy. I wanted distraction. 3 weeks after the engagement party, I was in Detroit finishing up the audit. When I ran into someone from my past at the hotel bar, Sarah Mitchell had been in my MBA program at Northwestern, and we'd stayed friendly even though we'd never been close. She was in town for a conference and recognized me across the room. "Jake Henderson," she called out, waving me over to her table. "What are the odds?" We caught up over drinks, the conversation flowing easily in that way it does with old classmates. Sarah had started her own consulting firm in Milwaukee and was doing well. She was funny and easy to talk to, and for the first time in weeks, I found myself laughing genuinely. "So what's new with you?" she asked. "Last I heard through the Northwestern grapevine, you were engaged to some marketing genius." I must have made a face because Sarah immediately backtracked. No. Did I just put my foot in it? Recent development, I said. Very recent. Want to talk about it? Or should I order us another round and change the subject? I chose the second option, and we spent the rest of the evening talking about everything except my personal life. It felt good to remember who I was outside of the whole Rebecca and Marcus disaster. When Sarah suggested we stay in touch, I actually meant it when I said yes. Flying back to Chicago the next day, I felt something I hadn't experienced in weeks. Optimism. Maybe I could get through this. Maybe I could rebuild my life into something different but still good. Maybe the betrayal didn't have to define everything that came next. That feeling lasted exactly until I got home and found Marcus sitting on the steps outside my building. He looked terrible. His usually perfect hair was messy, his clothes were wrinkled, and he had the kind of stubble that suggested he'd given up on grooming entirely. When he saw me approaching, he stood up like he was preparing for a fight. "We need to talk," he said. "No, we don't. Jake, please, just give me 5 minutes." I wanted to walk past him, but something in his expression stopped me. He looked desperate, in a way I'd never seen before. Not guilty exactly, but panicked. 5 minutes, I said. "Out here." Marcus ran his hands through his hair, a nervous gesture I'd seen 1,000 times before. "I know you hate me. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I need you to know that Rebecca loves you. She's been miserable since the party. What happened between us? It wasn't real. Looked pretty real to me. It was a mistake. A huge, stupid mistake that got out of hand." I stared at him. This person I'd considered family for 7 years, and felt nothing but exhaustion. "Why are you telling me this, Marcus? What do you want?" "Want you to take her back." The request was so unexpected that I actually laughed. "You've got to be kidding me. I'm serious. She made one mistake, Jake. One mistake in 2 years of being perfect for you. Don't throw away your whole future because of something that meant nothing. If it meant nothing, why did you do it?" Marcus looked away, staring at the street like the answer might be written on the asphalt. "Because I'm an idiot. Because I was drunk and stupid and jealous of what you guys had. Jealous. You have everything figured out, Jake. Good job. Stable life. A woman who worships you. Some of us are still trying to get our shit together." There it was, the resentment I'd never seen before. How long had Marcus felt this way? How long? Had our friendship been built on this foundation of envy and comparison? "Get your shit together on your own time," I said. "Stay away from me and stay away from Rebecca." I started toward my building, but Marcus grabbed my arm. "Jake, wait, there's something else you need to know." Something in his voice made me turn around. He looked genuinely frightened now, not just desperate. "What?" "I'm in trouble, real trouble. And if you don't take Rebecca back, I think she's going to find out about it." Marcus's words hung in the air between us like a threat. Real trouble, the kind Rebecca might discover. I studied his face, looking for clues about what he was really saying, but all I could see was fear. "What kind of trouble?" I asked Marcus. Glanced around the street nervously as if he expected someone to be watching us. "Not here. Can we go upstairs? This isn't something I can explain in 5 minutes." Every instinct told me to say no. I'd given him his 5 minutes, and now I wanted him gone. But curiosity won out over anger. What could possibly be so bad that Marcus was willing to grovel to his ex-best friend for help? 10 minutes, I said. "Then you leave." My apartment felt strange with Marcus in it again. He'd been here hundreds of times, sprawled on my couch watching games, helping me assemble furniture, eating cereal straight from the box while we planned weekend trips. Now he perched on the edge of my coffee table like he was afraid to get comfortable. "Remember when I told you about my import business?" He began. "You mean the one that doesn't exist?" Marcus winced. It existed, sort of. I had contacts in Thailand, and I was importing textiles and handicrafts. Small-scale stuff, but it was working. The problem was I got greedy, pulled out his phone and showed me a banking app. Even from across the room, I could see the negative. Numbers, multiple accounts, all deep in the red. Borrowed money to expand the business. A lot of money. From people who don't exactly send polite reminder notices when you're late on payments. How much money? 2.3 million? I stared at him. Dollars. The number was so absurd that I almost laughed. Marcus, how do you even borrow $2 million? What bank would give you that kind of loan? Not banks, he said quietly. Private lenders. The kind who advertise in the back of business magazines and don't ask too many questions about collateral. Loan sharks. High-interest private lending, Marcus corrected. But we both knew what he was really saying. I sat down heavily on my couch, trying to process this information. When did you borrow this money? Over the past year and a half? We started small. Just $50,000 to buy more inventory? When that shipment sold well, I borrowed more. Did more. Each loan was supposed to be short-term, just until the next shipment came in. But the shipment stopped coming in. My supplier got arrested for tax evasion. My inventory was seized by Thai customs. I had orders I couldn't fill. Customers demanding refunds and loan payments due every month. I was starting to understand the timeline. This was happening while you were helping me plan my proposal, while you were coming to dinner with Rebecca and me, while you were pretending everything was fine. I thought I could fix it. I had leads on new suppliers, ideas for different products. I just needed more time. So you what? Seduced my fiancée? As a distraction technique? Marcus's face flushed red. That's not what happened. Then what happened? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you destroyed my relationship for fun while you were secretly drowning in debt. Rebecca found out about the money. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? 3 weeks before your engagement party? I was at your place waiting for you to get home from work, and Rebecca was there. She was using your laptop to work on some presentation, and I was on my phone trying to deal with a particularly nasty call from one of my lenders. The guy was threatening to contact my family, my friends, and my employer. Rebecca overheard the whole thing. I tried to remember that day. Rebecca had mentioned working on a client presentation, but she'd seemed normal when I got home. We ordered Thai food and watched a movie. Nothing seemed off. She confronted me about it, Marcus continued. Wanted to know if you knew, if you were involved somehow. I begged her not to tell you. I said I was handling it, that I just needed a few more weeks, and she agreed to keep it secret, she said. She'd give me 2 weeks to either fix the problem or tell you myself. But Jake, she was scared. Really scared. She started asking questions about these lenders, whether they were dangerous, whether you might be at risk, just by being my friend. The pieces were starting to fit together in a way that made my stomach turn. She was trying to protect me. She was trying to protect both of us, she thought. If you found out about the debt, you'd try to help me. She was right, you would. Have. You'd have emptied your savings account and taken out loans and done whatever you could to fix my mess. She couldn't let that happen, so instead she decided to blow up our engagement. Marcus stood up and started pacing my small living room. That wasn't the plan. The plan was for me to disappear. Leave Chicago, start over somewhere else, let the whole thing blow over without dragging you into it. What changed? The lenders. Found out where I lived, started showing up at my apartment, calling my landlord, threatening my neighbors. I was getting evicted anyway, but suddenly I couldn't even go home. I was basically homeless, sleeping in my car some nights. I remembered now, in the weeks before the engagement party, Marcus had been staying over more often. He'd said his apartment was being fumigated, or painted, or something. Another lie. Rebecca felt guilty about me being homeless while you were planning this big party. She said I could crash at her place for a few days, just until I figured something out. The betrayal was taking on new dimensions, not just personal, but practical. Marcus had been manipulating both of us, playing on Rebecca's compassion and my trust. She was trying to help you, I said slowly. And you repaid her by kissing her at my engagement party. It wasn't like that. Marcus stopped pacing and faced me. Those few days at her place, we talked constantly. About the debt, about you, about what a mess I'd made of everything. She was so angry at me, but also worried. And I was grateful to have someone who knew the truth, who I didn't have to lie to anymore. So you fell in love with her? I thought I did. Or maybe I just fell in love with the idea of someone caring about me that much. Rebecca saw me at my worst and still wanted to help. You've never seen me at my worst, Jake. You've only known the version of me that had his shit together.
Ben!
Irony wasn't lost on me. She was trying to save our friendship by keeping your secret, and you destroyed it by falling for her. The night of the party, I was supposed to leave town. Rebecca had bought me a bus ticket to Denver. I was going to disappear, start over, let you both move on with your lives. But standing there, watching you toast your future together, I lost it. I couldn't handle the thought of you being happy while I lost everything. So you decided to take her with you. I decided to take something away from you. I was angry and desperate and completely out of my mind. When I kissed her, I wasn't thinking about love or the future or anything rational. I just wanted you to hurt as much as I was hurting. The confession settled between us like a lead weight. All this time, I'd been assuming that Marcus and Rebecca had fallen in love, that their betrayal was at least born out of genuine emotion. Learning that it was just revenge, just Marcus lashing out in his desperation, somehow made it worse. "Where's Rebecca now?" I asked. "At her parents' house in Naperville. She's been there since the party. Jake, she's devastated. She knows what I did was unforgivable, but she still blames herself for the whole situation and the debt." Marcus laughed bitterly. "Still there? Still growing. The lenders have started contacting people in my network, trying to find me. It's only a matter of time before they figure out you're my closest friend. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you. These people don't care about your involvement or lack thereof. If they think pressuring you will get them closer to their money, they'll do it." I stood up and walked to my window, looking out at the Chicago street where I'd built my adult life. Everything felt precarious now, like the stability I'd taken for granted was just an illusion. "What do you want from me, Marcus?" "I want you to take Rebecca back. Marry her. Build the life you were planning to build. And you. I'm leaving Chicago tonight. For real this time. I have enough cash to get to Seattle and maybe rent a room for a month. After that, I'll figure something out. Running away doesn't make the debt disappear. No, but it makes it someone else's problem. And if you and Rebecca are together, if you're focused on your own lives, maybe these people will realize that harassing you won't get them any closer to their money." I turned back to face him. "You're asking me to forgive the woman who cheated on me so that you can escape the consequences of your own terrible decisions. I'm asking you to forgive the woman who was trying to protect you from my terrible decisions." The distinction mattered, I realized. Rebecca's betrayal still hurt, but understanding her motivations changed how I thought about it. She hadn't chosen Marcus over me. She'd chosen to handle an impossible situation in the worst possible way. "Get out," I said. Marcus nodded like he'd been expecting this. "No, you probably never want to see me again, Marcus. Get out of my apartment, get out of Chicago, and figure out how to fix your own life without destroying anyone else's." After he left, I sat in my living room for a long time, thinking about Rebecca. Was she really at her parents' house, blaming herself for a situation that Marcus had created? Did she think I hated her? Did she know that Marcus had confessed everything? I picked up my phone 3 times to call her before finally sending a text. "We need to talk." She responded within 30 seconds. "Yes, please." 2 hours later, Rebecca was sitting in the same spot where Marcus had been, looking smaller and more fragile than I'd ever seen her. When I told her what Marcus had confessed, she started crying. Not the pretty tears of romantic movies, but the ugly, exhausted sobs of someone who'd been carrying a terrible secret for too long. "I should have told you immediately," she said when she could speak again. "I should have trusted you to handle it better than I did." "You should have," I agreed. "But I understand why you didn't, do you? Because I've been sitting in my childhood bedroom for 3 weeks, trying to understand it myself. I looked at this woman I'd been planning to marry, seeing her clearly for the first time in months. Not the perfect girlfriend I'd put on a pedestal, but a real person who'd made a terrible choice while trying to protect someone she loved. "Can we try again?" I asked. "Even after everything? Especially after everything?" "But no more secrets. More trying to protect me from things I should know about. We handle the hard stuff together." Rebecca nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "What about Marcus? What about him? Do you think he'll be okay?" I thought about my former best friend, alone in a city where he knew nobody, carrying debt he'd never be able to repay. "I think Marcus will figure out how to survive. He always does." Feel guilty about giving up on him. "You didn't give up? On him, you chose me." Finally. The weeks following our conversation were unlike anything I'd experienced. Rebecca and I didn't just pick up where we'd left off. We had to rebuild everything from scratch. Trust, communication, even basic affection, felt foreign at first. We started going to couples therapy with Dr. Elena Vasquez, no-nonsense counselor who made us confront the uncomfortable truths we'd been avoiding. You both created a dynamic where one person was the protector and the other was protected. Dr. Vasquez told us during our third session, "That's not a partnership. That's a parent-child relationship." She was right. I'd been content to let Rebecca handle social situations while I focused on work and finances. Rebecca had been making decisions about what I could and couldn't handle emotionally. Neither of us had been treating the other as an equal adult capable of facing difficult realities. The therapy sessions were brutal. We fought about things we'd never discussed before: money, family expectations, career ambitions, even stupid stuff like whose turn it was to do dishes. But slowly, we started talking to each other instead of past each other. 3 months after Marcus left Chicago, Rebecca moved back into my apartment. Not because we were ready to get married again, but because we wanted to try living together as the people we actually were instead of the people we'd been pretending to be. That's when the first letter arrived. Found it slipped under my door on a Tuesday morning, my name written in block letters across a plain white envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a phone number and a message: "Your friend Marcus owes us money. Call us." I showed Rebecca the letter over breakfast. Her face went pale, but she didn't panic the way she might have before therapy. "Do you think they're dangerous?" she asked. "I think they want me to think they're dangerous." We decided to call the number together, putting the phone on speaker so we could both hear the conversation. A man with a gravelly voice answered on the second ring. "You're Jake Henderson?" "I am, and you are." "Someone who wants to have a conversation about Marcus Coleman. Marcus doesn't live here anymore. We know where Marcus lives. We want to know where Marcus works." I glanced at Rebecca, who shook her head slightly. "Don't know where Marcus works. Your friend disappeared, owing us a substantial amount of money. We think you might be motivated to help us locate him." "What makes you think that?" "People care about their credit ratings, their employment records, their safety." The threat was subtle but unmistakable. I felt my anger rising, but Rebecca grabbed my hand and squeezed, reminding me to stay calm. "I haven't spoken to Marcus in 3 months," I said. "I have no idea where he is or what he's doing. Perhaps you'll be motivated to find out." The line went dead. Rebecca and I stared at each other across my kitchen table. "Well," she said finally, "that was terrifying. Should we call the police?" "Tell them what? Someone asked us to help them find a mutual friend?" She had a point. Caller had been careful not to make any explicit threats. But the message was clear: find Marcus or face consequences. Over the next 2 weeks, we received 4 more letters and 3 more phone calls. Each contact was slightly more specific about the consequences of not cooperating. They knew where I worked, what kind of car I drove, which gym I went to. They knew Rebecca's parents' address in Naperville and the name of her marketing firm. "They're trying to scare us into doing their job for them," Rebecca said after the 3rd call. "They probably have dozens of people there pressuring this. Way, is it working? The scarring party?" "Absolutely. But I'm not going to help them find Marcus so they can break his legs." I was proud of her for saying that, even though part of me wanted to give them whatever information would make them leave us alone. The old Rebecca might have tried to protect me by handling this herself, but the new Rebecca was choosing to face it together. Even though she was clearly frightened, then Marcus called me. I almost didn't answer the unknown Seattle number, thinking it might be another debt collector. But something made me pick up. "Jake, it's me. Where are you?" "Somewhere safe." "Listen, I heard from a mutual friend that some people have been contacting you." "Mutual friend?" "My cousin Tony still lives in Chicago. He saw guys watching your building." My blood ran cold. "They're watching my building?" "Probably. Look, I'm sorry this is happening. I never wanted you to get dragged into this. Well, I'm dragged in now. What should I do?" "Nothing. Don't help them. Don't give them any information about me and whatever you do, don't try to pay my debt. These people will take whatever money you give them and still come after me." "How much do you actually owe them? With interest and penalties?" "Almost $3 million now." The number was staggering. "Marcus, how do you ever pay back $3 million? You don't. You disappear and hope they eventually give up and write it off as a loss." What about Rebecca and me? Do we just live with this harassment forever? There was a long pause. I'm working on something. Give me 2 more weeks. What kind of something? The less you know, the better. But Jake, if something happens to me, if you stop hearing from these people suddenly, don't try to find out why. Just be grateful and move on with your life. 6 months later, Rebecca and I had a small wedding at her parents' house in Naperville. No best man, no elaborate reception, just family and a few close friends. Simple and honest, like we were trying to be with each other. The harassment from Marcus's creditors had stopped abruptly 2 weeks after his phone call. Just like he'd predicted. I never found out what he'd done to make it stop, and I followed. His advice not to investigate. Sometimes ignorance really is bliss. I never heard from Marcus again. Sometimes I wondered if he'd found a way out of his debt, if he'd started over successfully in Seattle or wherever he'd ended up. Sometimes I wondered if he was even still alive. Mostly, I tried not to think about him at all. The betrayal had nearly destroyed me, but in the end, it taught me something valuable. Trust isn't just about believing the best in people. Sometimes it's about choosing to build something new after the worst has already happened. And sometimes the strongest relationships are the ones that survive being completely broken and carefully rebuilt. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.